grade 12, welcoming you all to another video. Today you are going to learn the chapter 2 from Part B, that is Indian Economic Development. So the name of the chapter here is Indian Economy from 1950 to 1990. So in the last class you have already seen the structure of Indian economy prior to 1947, that is during the British colonial rule. So from today you are going to learn the structure of Indian economy after 1947, that is after we got our independence. So you know that we got independence in 15 August 1947, which means that we are now the master of our own economic planning. So we are going to learn the various structure of Indian economy from 1950 to 1990. So the first topic that you are going to learn here is meaning of economic planning. Second, goals of 5-year plan. Third topic, agriculture reform. What are the reforms took place in agriculture sector? Fourth, the meaning of Green Revolution, which I think most of you have already learned in class 9, its achievements. Fifth, you are going to learn Industrial Policy Resolution. We call it IPR, 1956. The sixth topic you are going to learn small-scale industry, its importance of small-scale industry and its role. And lastly, you're going to learn a very important topic here, trade policy. So some of the foreign trade policy that we Indian government has took up after 1947. So all this topic I'm going to present you through a PowerPoint presentation. So let us, without much ado, let us go to our presentation.
On 15 August 1947, India woke to a new dawn of freedom. Finally, now we are the master of our own destiny after some 200 years of British rule. Now, the leaders of independent India had to decide which type of economic system is most suitable for our nation. So, this system should be something which would promote the welfare of all the people rather than focusing only to the few. So there are different type of economic system that you will be seeing. The first economic system is the capitalist economy. In capitalist economy or a capitalist society, what do they do here is the goods produced are distributed among the people not on the basis of what the people need, but on the basis of the purchasing power. It means the ability to buy goods and services. So in capitalist economy, one has to have the money in the pocket to buy the goods. So such a society did not appeal to our then prime minister, our first prime minister, that is Jawaharlal Nehru, because he felt that when we apply this capitalist economy, the great majority of the people of the country would be left behind without the chance to improve their quality of life. So he did not want to adopt the capitalist economy. The second is the socialist economy. In socialist economy or in socialist society, the government decides what goods are to be produced in accordance with the needs of the society. Um, it is assumed that in capitalist society, the government knows what is good for the people of the country, and so the desire of the individual consumers are not given much importance. For example, in socialist nation, mostly they provide free healthcare facilities to all its citizens. Some of the socialist society or socialist nation which adopt socialist economy are Cuba and China. So in Cuba and China, most of the economic activities are governed by the socialist principle. The third economy system is mixed economy. Mixed economy is a economy where both public and or private or what both government and the market together answer the three question, that is what to produce, how to produce, and how to distribute what is produced. So India has adopted the mixed economy, and in this view India has decided that The nation will be a socialist society with a strong public sector, but also with a private property and democracy. So the government would plan for the economy with the private sector being encouraged to be the part of the plan effort. That is why in 1950 the planning commission was set up with the prime minister as its chairperson. Now, let us learn what is economic planning. Economic planning simply means a utilization of countries' resources in different development activities in accordance with national priorities. In simple terms, it implies how the resources of the nation should be put to use. Students, let us now learn the goals of 5-year plans. You have learned that in 1950 the Planning Commission was set up with the Prime Minister as its chairperson, which means now the era of 5-year plan had begun. Let us now learn some of the different goals of 5-year plan. The goals of 5-year plan are growth, modernization, self-reliance, and equity. Now, let us learn what does the growth mean in the goals of the 5-year plan. Growth simply refers to the increase in the country's capacity to produce the output of goods and services within the country. In other words, it implies that there should be a larger stock of productive capital. For example, large productive capital includes the machines or technology or a larger size of supporting services like transport and banking. So when there is a good indicators of economic growth, it simply means that there is a steady growth or steady increase in the gross domestic product. Now, for those of you who doesn't know what is gross domestic product, gross domestic product or GDP is the market value of all the goods and services produced in the country during the year. Now, let us think that gross domestic product as a cake and growth is the increase in the size of cake. So if the cake is larger or if the GDP is larger, more people can enjoy it, right? So it is necessary to produce more goods and services if the people of India are to enjoy a more rich and varied life. So the GDP of the country is derived from the different sectors of economy, that is from the agriculture sector, the industrial sector and service sector. The contribution made by each of these sectors make up the structural composition of the economy, that is how much the people or the number of the people engage in different sector. So that is the first goal of the 5-year plan, that is to have a good economic growth. The second goals of the 5-year plan here is the modernization. Now, modernization simply means adoption of new technology. To increase the production of goods and services, the producer have to adopt a new technology. For example, a farmer can increase its output on the farm by using a new seeds varieties or high yielding varieties instead of using the old one. Similarly, a factory can also increase its output by using a new type of machine. So adoption of the new technology or the modernization is the second goal of the 5-year plan. However, modernization does not only refer to the use of new technology but also to changes in social outlook. For example, that the recognition where women have should have the same rights as men. In traditional society, we all know that women are supposed to remain at home while men are at work. But today, or in modern society, we make use of the talent of women in many workplaces or many services like bank, factories, schools, medical health care facilities, or any other services. So such a society in most of the occasions is needed in a modern society. So that is the second goal of the 5-year plan. The third goal of the 5-year plan is self-reliance. Self-reliance means reducing dependence on imports, that is, avoiding use of import goods which could be produced in India itself. Any nation or any country can promote economic growth and modernization when they use its own resources. That is why the first 7 5-year plans gave importance to self-reliance, because our leaders has felt that this policy was considered a necessity in order to reduce our dependence on foreign countries, especially when it comes to food production. The fourth goal and the last goal of the 5-year plan is equity. Equity simply means, or it refers to reduction in inequality of income and wealth. Now, the growth, modernization, and self reliance by themselves may not improve the kind of life which people are living. For instance, a country may have a high growth, the most modern technology developed in the countries itself, but what is the use of it when most of its population or its people are living in poverty? Therefore, it is important to ensure that the benefits of economic prosperity should reach to the poorer section as well, instead of being enjoyed only by the rich. So, in addition to growth, modernization, and self-reliance, equity is important. So every Indian should be able to meet his or her basic needs such as food, a decent house, education, and healthcare. And inequality in the distribution of wealth should be reduced. So that is the fourth goal of the 5-year plan, that is to have an equity. Students, we will be learning the next topic under this chapter, that is agriculture sector reform after our independence. You have learned that in chapter 1, during the colonial rule, there was neither growth nor equity in the agriculture sector. Now, the policymaker of independent India had to address this issue. So, the first steps that they have taken under the agriculture reform is the land reform. Now, what is land reform? Land reform refers to the change in the ownership of land holdings. At the time of independence, the land tenure system was characterized by intermediaries, that is, zamindaris, the jakitars, and other landowners. So these zamindars, they merely collect rain from the actual tillers of the soil without contributing towards the improvement of the farm. That is why there was a low productivity in agriculture sector during before the independence, and which ultimately forced India to import food from the United States of America, that is USA. That is why equity in agriculture sector call for land reforms, which primarily refers to change in the ownership of land holdings. So just a year after the independence, as steps were taken to abolish these intermediaries and to make the dealers, to make the cultivators the owners of the land. Now, the idea behind this move was that the ownership of the land would give incentive. So any owner of the land would give incentive to the dealer to invest in making improvement in their land, provided that sufficient capital was made available to them. Another policy to promote equity in the agriculture sector is land ceiling. Land ceiling means fixing the maximum size of land which could be owned by an individual. Now, the purpose of land ceiling was to reduce the concentration of land ownership in a few hands. So, it simply means focusing on of the land ownership only in a few hands. So, ultimately, after the abolition of intermediaries, some 200 lakhs dinans, some 200 lakhs of cultivators who were working under the zamindars came into direct contact with the government, and they were now freed from being exploited by the zamindars. However, the goal of this equity was not fully served by the abolition of these intermediaries, this population of this zamindari chakitari system. In some area, the former zamindars continued to own a large area of land by making use of some loopholes in the legislation. Also, the land ceiling legislation also faced some hurdles. The big landlords challenged the legislation in the court, delaying its implementation. They used this delay to register their land in the name of the close relative, thereby escaping from the legislation. So ultimately, the legislation also had a lot of loopholes which were exploited by the pink landlords to retain their land. So land reforms were successful only in few of the areas. So some of the states which were successful in land reforms were Kerala and West Bengal, because these states had a government committed to the policy of land to the tillers. Unfortunately, other states did not have the same level of commitment, and vast inequality of land holdings continues even till today. Students, let us learn another topic from this chapter, that is the Green Revolution. Green Revolution is one of the important steps taken under the agriculture reform. You know that at the time of independence, about 75% of the country's population was dependent on agriculture. Productivity in agriculture sector was very low because the farmer use the old technology and the absence of required infrastructure for the vast majority of the farmers. India's agriculture during the time was vitally depend on the monsoon, and if the monsoon fell short, the farmers were in trouble unless they had access to irrigation facilities. That is why new steps were taken to improve the agriculture system, that is true by introducing the Green Revolution. Now, what is Green Revolution? Green Revolution implies the use of HYV seeds. HYV seeds means a high yielding variety of seeds. It also implies the use of chemical fertilizers, use of insecticides and pesticides for crop protection, scientific rotation of crops, and modernized means of cultivation. Now, the stagnation in the agriculture sector during the colonial rule was permanently broken by the Green Revolution, and after the introduction of this Green Revolution, there was high achievement in the agriculture sector. Now, we will be learning some of the achievements of the Green Revolution. The first achievement brought by the Green Revolution is rise in production and productivity. Rise in production and productivity refers to large increase in the production of food grains resulting from the use of high yielding varieties of seeds, especially in the field of wheat and rice. The second is the second achievement is increase in income. Now, the farmers' income has also increased, double to what they have earned during what they have earned earlier. The third achievement brought by Green Revolution is rise in commercial farming. There was a huge increase in the sale of their wheat and rice, and they get a surplus. The fourth achievement is impact on social revolution. That is, social revolution implies use of new technology, HYV seeds, fertilizer, pesticides for crop protection. And the last achievement brought by Green Revolution is increase in employment. Now, after the introduction of Green Revolution, there was a huge employment in the agriculture sector, which brought a drastic change in the income of the farmers. Students, we shall be learning some of the failures of the Green Revolution here. Um, the Green Revolution was started in the mid 1960s, and the first phase of the Green Revolution was restricted to the limited crops and limited areas. These crops were focused mostly to the two crops, mainly wheat and rice, and the areas where the Green Revolution focused more was only to the affluent states like Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. So that is the first failure. The second failure here is partial removal of poverty. The third, there was they neglected the land reform. Fourth failure, increase in income disparity between a small and a big farmer. That is, there is an increase in income inequality between the small farmers and the big farmers. And lastly, there is an ecological degradation. Use of modern means of technology results in the loss of soil fertility, and ecological imbalances. First five-year plan placed a lot of emphasis on the industrial development because the poor nation can progress only if they have a good industrial sector. Industry provides employment which is more stable than employment in agriculture. It also promotes modernization and overall prosperity. That is why economists have found that uh, whenever there is any progress in an industry, there is a sound based progress in the nation. That is why industry policy resolution was started, and industry policy is an important instrument through which the government regulates the industrial activities in an economy. In 1956, resolution was laid down for the following objective of industrial policy. So these are some of the objectives of industrial policy resolution 1956. The first objective is to accelerate the growth of industrialization, that is to focus on the growth of industrialization. The second objective is to develop a heavy industry. Third, to expand our public sector, that is government sector. Fourth, to reduce inequalities or disparity in income and wealth between the rich and the poor industry. And the last objective of industrial policy resolution 1956 is to prevent monopolies, to prevent ownership by the single individual. Monopoly means ownership of single individual and concentration of wealth and income in the hand of the small number of the individuals. So this was some of the objectives set up under the industrial policy resolution 1956. Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 classified industries into three categories. The first category comprised industries which would be exclusively owned by the state, that is, which will be exclusively owned by the government. I will give you one example which was exclusive. One example of industries which was exclusively owned by the government is the ONGC, the Oil and Natural Gas Company. This is solely owned by the state or by the government. The second category consists of industries in which the private sector could supplement the effort of the state sector, which means those industries where both private and public take a joint ownership, a joint venture. So this comes under the second category. The third category consists of the remaining industries which were to be solely owned by the private sector. So these were some of the categories, industry categories classified under the IPR, that is Industrial Policy Resolution 1956. Students, we shall be learning some of the importance and role of small-scale industries. Now, what is small-scale industries? Small-scale industries are those industries which at presently defined as the one whose investment does not exceed rupees 5 crore. Now, in early years, that is around 1950s, a small scale industry units was the one whose investment was maximum of 1 lakh rupees 1 lakh. So in 1955, the Village and Small Scale Industry Committee, also called the Garvey Committee, was set up in order to promote rural development. Small scale industries are believed to be more labor intensive, that is, they use more of labor and rather than a machine which was used by the large scale industries. And when they use more of the labor, it is believed that it generates more of employment. So because of this uh, because of this purpose, the production of the number of product was reserved for the small scale industry. um, the criterion of this reservation being the ability of these units to manufacture of goods, they were also given the concessions such as a lower excise duty, that is a lower tax rate, and bank loans at a lower rate of the interest. We shall be learning the last topic under this chapter, that is trade policy. The industrial policy that we adopted was closely related to the trade policy. Now, when I talk about trade policy, it means some of the foreign policy that we have taken up after 1947. In the first seven plan, trade means exchange of goods with a foreign country. So trade was characterized by what is commonly called an inward trade strategy. Now, this inward looking trade strategy is technically known as import substitution. Import substitution means substituting import with domestic production, which means instead of using the imported material goods, we focus more on using of on our own domestic goods. So for example, instead of importing vehicles made in a foreign country, industry would be encouraged to produce them in India itself. In this policy, that is in this trade policy, the government protected the domestic industries from foreign competition. So what do they do here is protection from imports took of two form. They have adopted the two form through by adopting tariff and quotas. Now, what is this tariff? Tariffs are a tax on the imported goods. They collect um, more of tax tariff from the imported goods, which make imported goods more expensive and discourage their use. And quotas simply means the quantity of goods which can be imported. Means there should be a limited quantity of goods that should be imported. So the effect of tariff and quota is that they restricted imports and therefore protected the domestic industries. Firm is industry from the foreign competition. So impact of the inward looking trade strategy has a huge role in on the domestic industry. So some of the impact of inward looking strategy on our domestic industries where it helped to save the foreign exchange by reducing imports of goods. It creates a protected market and large demand for domestically produced goods. It also helped to build a strong industrial base in our country, which directly lead to economic prosperity. So these were some of the trade policy and foreign trade policy implemented after our independence, that is after 1947. So in conclusion, we can say that the progress of the Indian economy during the first seven plan, that is from 1950 to 1990, was quite impressive. Our industries was far more diversified as compared to the situation at the time of independence. India has also become a self-sufficient in food production, which credit goes to or thanks goes to the Green Revolution. Land reforms resulted in abolition of the hated zamindari system. However, many economies became dissatisfied with the performance of many public sector enterprise. They have found that there is an excessive government regulation which prevent the growth of the entrepreneurship. So in the name of self-reliance, our producers were protected against the foreign competition, and this did not give them the incentive to improve the quality of goods that they produce. So our policies were inward oriented, and so we failed to develop a strong export sector. So the need for the reform of the economic policy was widely felt in the context of challenging global economic scenario, and the new economic policy was initiated in 1991 to make our economy more efficient. So this economic reform 1991 onwards, this topic we shall be learning in the next chapter.
Okay students, that's it for this chapter. I hope you have learned something from this chapter, that is Indian economy from 1950 to 1990 onwards. We'll be discussing the next chapter, that is chapter 3. That is again another very important topic in the economic reform seen from 1991 onwards. So that you are going to learn in the next video explanation class. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy and study well. Thank you.